At first glance, the mysterious circumstances surrounding the apparent resurrection of Sir Gregor Clegane as Qyburn's Frankenstein creature, Sir Robert Strong, appear to be the work of a powerful necromancer. But is it true? Does the Bloody Maester have the ability to wield such magic, or the scientific knowledge to overcome death itself, and return those who have passed to the other side back to life? The evidence, it would seem, suggests no. In A Feast for Crows, Circe too, when Qyburn asks for the mountain to be moved to the Black Cells, so that he can study the poison that's supposedly been altered using the dark arts, he says, "Send a knight to slay a knight, an archer to kill an archer," the small folk often say, "to combat the black arts." He finishes without ending the sentence, inferring that he possesses knowledge of such things, but chooses not to say the words, leaving his actual meaning somewhat open to interpretation. The evidence would suggest that Qyburn's best talent, or power, appears to be an understanding in the ways of healing beyond even that of the great archmaesters of the Citadel, combined with simple sly deception. In A Clash of Kings, Circe too, he claims to understand the nature of life and death better than any man in Old Town, and that he was as skilled a healer as Ebros, attempting to use his experiments on living human beings to give him the knowledge to surpass the Archmaester. But for this he was cast out, exiled across the narrow sea, putting an end to his experiments and his learning. Qyburn goes on to prove his skill as a healer when he saves Jaime'S arm and possibly his life, whilst tending to his dismembered hand. But then, as one of Fargo Hope's brave companions, he'd be well practised at tending to dismembered hands and feet. Circe then becoming his patron in King's Landing changes everything. A patron who's wealthy enough to fund his experiments and provide a secluded laboratory. A patron who has the power to supply several human guinea pigs for him to experiment on, until, in his own callous words, they are used up. But most importantly, a patron who's immoral enough to allow him to continue the experiments that he began at the Citadel. Experiments that would gain him knowledge far beyond Archmaester Ebros and the rest of the Grey Sheep. So let's take a closer look at the details surrounding the mountain's apparent death and try to work out what's going on. Pycelle is the first to examine Sir Gregor, noting that even maggots will not eat his mortified flesh, and that when they leeched him, the leeches died. Pycelle then rules out the use of Manticore venom, as this particular substance is well known to kill instantly as soon as the poison reaches the heart. Pycelle may be creepy and smell of piss, but you don't get to be a Grand Maester without having a certain amount of skill and knowledge, and as a lifelong servant of House Lannister, we know that he isn't lying. Qyburn then goes on to contradict this analysis, claiming that whilst preparing the skull to send to Dawn, beetles had eaten the same flesh that the maggots had refused, and makes no suggestion of them dying afterwards, casting doubt as to whether the skull was actually Sir Gregor's. He also claims that the poison was Manticore venom, but thickened with spells to extend the time that it would take Sir Gregor to die his excruciating death. So is it Manticore venom or not? Interestingly, in A Feast for Crows, the captain of the guard chapter, Tyene Sand tells Doran Martell, "I know the poison that he used, and there is none slower or more agonising," which doesn't sound like Manticore venom. She also tells Obara and Nymeria Sand, "Sisters, I know the poison father used. If his spear so much as broke the mountain's skin, Clegane is dead." So twice, Tyene says that she knows the poison that Oberyn used, and what effect it would have. Whilst we know that Oberyn did teach Tyene in the arts of poison, this would also infer that he must have instructed her in the dark arts. Otherwise how else could she know exactly what poison he had used, if it is what Qyburn says it is? There is no evidence, references, or even a suggestion to Tyene having any knowledge of magic or the dark arts. So either Tyene is lying about her knowledge of the poison, or Qyburn is lying about it being Manticore venom thickened with spells. Given how close the Sand Snake sisters are, it seems unlikely that Tyene would make boastful lies about her knowledge. It seems more likely that Qyburn is lying to discredit Pycelle and enhance his own reputation. So this raises doubts about both the skull belonging to Sir Gregor and the poison that was used. Now let's take a closer look at Qyburn's supposed creation, Sir Robert Strong. The key here is in the detail. The reason we all love George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire series is the incredible attention to detail that he painstakingly puts into every character and every scene. And so, with that in mind, when we first meet Sir Robert in A Dance with Dragons, he's serving in the Kingsguard and carries Cersei after her Walk of Atonement. From this we can tell that whilst he may not speak, he can definitely see. His eyes appear to work just fine. And so, with attention to detail in mind, this raises some questions. Some claim that Sir Robert never removes his helm because underneath he has no head. So how does he see? Others claim that his head was replaced with another. So how does he see? Did Qyburn replace his optic nerve, which in itself attaches to the optic tract via the optic chasm? For a civilization which is working at medieval levels of biological knowledge and medicine, that's pretty impressive. Or rather, pretty unlikely. What's more likely, to the point of almost certain, is that his head was never removed and the skull is a fake. So this leaves us with two options. Let's look at option 1. Sir Robert's head remained on his body and Qyburn gave his dead corpse new life, reanimating it into the monster Sir Robert Strong using powerful necromancer magic, or a scientific method unknown to all but himself. Nobody knows what Qyburn was up to in the Black Cells, or what he did with the test subjects. We know nothing of his history before he was at the Citadel. Maybe he can perform magic, or perhaps he's a time-travelling doctor from the 25th century. Either that, or he's just lying. Though it's not unknown for characters in the story to return from the dead. After all, Thoros of Myr brought Beric Dondarrion back, who in turn returned Catelyn Stark to life as Lady Stoneheart, both using the last kiss of the Lord of Light. However, Beric admits that dying made him a shadow of his former self. He can't even remember his home. And Lady Stoneheart is nothing but a walking manifestation of hatred against those who killed her and her son. Cold and brutal in ways that Lady Catelyn never was. And yet, the behaviour of Sir Robert Strong is no different to his former self. A sworn sword of the Lannisters, killing on their command, protecting the family as told. If anything, he's more obedient now than he was before, in direct contradiction to both Beric and Catelyn. Which brings me to option 2. The Occam's razor theory suggests that the simplest answer is usually the correct one. So here it is, option 2. The Mountain didn't die. Qyburn saved his life and simply changed his identity to protect the Lannisters from a war with Doran Martell and all of Dorne, and to further enhance his own reputation. We've already deduced that the skull appears to be a fake, and thrown doubt as to the type of poison used. We've established that through his experiments, Qyburn has surpassed the healing qualities of Archmaester Ebrose, and that Sir Robert Strong's behaviour is not consistent with other reanimated characters. So as well as being a murderer and a torturer, Qyburn is simply a liar, which really isn't so surprising. But if Qyburn is only hiding Sir Gregor's identity from the world to protect the Lannisters from a war with Doran Martell, why not reveal his true identity to Cersei and the king? The answer to this is more simple. Qyburn has much to gain in people believing that the newest member of the Kingsguard is his creation. Not only does it ensure his continued position in the royal household, but also grants him a position of power within the royal court, at least for as long as the Lannisters remain in power. Another interesting question to consider is why Sir Robert wears a helm which is adorned with 7 silken plumes in the colours of the faith, and why the clasps of his cloak are shaped as 7 pointed stars. Qyburn has not previously shown any indication of religious piety, and Sir Gregor certainly didn't. Plus surely the faith would consider this monster an abomination, and condemn it to spend eternity in the seven hells. So why the religious association? It's hard to say for sure, but more than likely it's nothing more than an attempt to disassociate Sir Robert from Sir Gregor, who nobody thought of as a man of faith. The argument against this theory is that other knights in the Kingsguard say that he never eats or drinks, and that they've never seen him use a privy, but this proves nothing. Eating and drinking would require him to remove his helm, revealing his identity, so he consumes his sustenance in private. And as for using the privy, a simple colostomy bag would suffice. The great thing about the story of Qyburn and the Mountain is that, like most of George's writing, it could either be a grand tale of mystery and magic, or it could just be about people being lying squitbags. Whichever way you see it, says more about you, the reader, than it does about the story itself.